Salam everyone and welcome to SomaliDispatch.com. Abdi Nor Iftin is a Somali American writer and a public speaker. He is also the author of the book Call Me an American, where he tells his incredible journey to a new life in the United States of America. He joined us from Maine for a riveting conversation about both his successes and challenges ever since arriving in the United States. Salam and welcome to SomaliDispatch.com, Abdi Nor Iftin. How are you doing today?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
Okay, can you start by telling us your initial dream of becoming an American citizen as a young man in Mogadishu?
Thank you. It's a dream, and I think we all have at some point dreams in our lives. Mine was not that unusual. It's part of every child's dream. We have those in the U.S. that dream about what they want to become in the future. If it's Superman, some sort of a character that they had seen from movies. The way I start telling my story is that I was inspired before I really even started having a dream. And this inspiration came directly from another immigrant, some immigrant guy who himself was inspired by movies, American movies. And this is a action hero, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm one of his followers way back, early in the 90s, as a kid, watching his movies a lot. So that is where it started. And next thing I know is that I was interested in, or should I say, completely motivated by the things that I found to be pretty attractive of this nation. So that was the step. That's where it all started.
Excellent. It's amazing that Arnold had a similar dream of coming to the States and making it big, and here you are, right? But I was also interested in knowing a little bit about your experiences in Kenya, in one of the refugee camps that kind of propelled you to come into the States as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Well, in Kenya, you're smiling, you're having fun, you have friends, you're eating together and all that. But one element that was missing from day one was the word hope. I could find everything else. I could find joy, happiness, friendship, food, culture, music, everything that you want. But hope was not there. And without that, you don't have the engine to propel you to where you need to go in terms of implementing, your dreams. And I was looking for that hope, and I will talk about finding that hope at some point later. I tried everything that I could, with starting with a local college in Nairobi, at a time when, if you remember, late 2013, it was very hard to be a refugee and a Somali in Nairobi, especially after the attack at the mall, and Al-Shabaab was infiltrating everywhere, and that the Kenyan government has labeled us all the same, terrorists. You have to be tracked down and handed down. With that, I was still actually going to college, and I think I hit the jackpot after I realized I became one of the lucky winners of the United States lottery program, sometimes called the diversity visa lottery program, in the year 2013. And that was a crack open for the hope that I wanted in my life. And I had to fight for that to the last minute,
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So you made it to the States subsequently in 2014, a date that is significant when you look back that you landed in Boston. Can you tell us a bit about what that experience was like? Was it like anything like the movie Coming to America?
Yeah, thank you. It was a little bit more like you could connect with the movie Coming to America. The only difference is in Coming to America, they land in New York City, and they're expect and it's a little bit the other way, because I think in Coming to America, Eddie Murphy is a rich guy from Africa. He's the son of the he's a prince, son of the king. I was not. I was actually I came here with no bank account. You can imagine, with nothing else to depend upon. I didn't leave any property behind. So I landed seeing in front of me all the potential things that I could do to better myself, my family, my friends, and my community. But again, deeply, the emotions were amazing, because this is the land of the dreams. I would wonder if gravity was the same. I would wonder if what people would do. How do they? What time do they sleep? How do they drive? What do they do on the weekends? What
Right.
kind of jobs do you have?
Right.
All the things that you are curious about.
Right.
And then the reality is different, because I think, yes, I landed in Boston, but Boston was not home. The family that sponsored me came all the way 2 hours and a half to drive me back to this state where I live. It's called Maine.
Right.
And Maine is not really one you ever hear about back when you're, in Kenya and Somalia. It's not one of those famous states. The only things that is Texas, Florida, New York, and California, and other places. Maine is not that famous because actually it doesn't have many people. It's a wilderness, more trees, lakes and rivers and ocean. So it's more like living that nomadic life that we talked about back in Somalia. Remember the stories between the two rivers, the Juba and the Shabelle, and the animals and the farms and the people. It kind of reminds me that, and I'm really very appreciative to be here. But at the beginning, it was just more of a shock.
Right. It's not what formed your dream of coming to America, was it?
Not true.
No, it wasn't. Okay. So at that time that you came to the States was going through something that's currently referred to as the backlash of Obama years. What was that like for you, and where did that, how did that take a dent in your dream? What was your view of what was going on when you landed, and subsequently when Trump came to power?
I think I was not very well educated, or should I say informed, on the U.S. Regarding politics, and how politics can really become bitter and nasty in the United States. Yes, we had Obama. That's right. I got into his last year of office. I'm very sure if I was about to come to the U.S. right after 2016, I wouldn't be here today. So I'm very grateful that I came before Trump has arrived. But one thing that really took me by surprise, or should I say by shock, in learning about America is, well, number one, how divided this country is ideologically and also, political. I landed in the heart of this fight, and lesson number one I learned was you have to be on one side. You cannot be in the middle.
Right.
So now you have to choose between a Republican and a Democrat, right? And to choose between the two of them, you just have to look around your friends who are the closest to you. And then somehow I think, because, I'm not really saying like every other one would say that Democrats are good for the immigrants or Republicans are bad for the immigrants. It's all politics.
Right.
They want our votes. They want us to be here and all that. I totally understand that. But if you are, xenophobic, racist, and this and that, or if you are actually okay with a leader who's sort of using all those kind of words, well, you're not one of, you're not one of my circle, one of my friends.
Right.
So I try to use my story not based on political party. I'm not really saying I will ever run for office as a Democrat. You're not going to hear that from me. The thing is, I just like to talk to the other side. If you are an American who really believes that Somalis are a threat to North America, that they don't like to integrate, that they don't like to assimilate, that they don't learn English.
And that's been the story prior to you coming in Maine.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Maine made headlines for that. Sorry to cut you off, but taking part in the last election, becoming a citizen, participating in all the conversations you just mentioned, did that put your dream back on, back on, if you will? How did that change, and you voting for the first time and exercising that right, and not being just called an American, but becoming an American? What was that like?
Right. It's a very good point. I think it was completing the dream. 5 years I lived in the US without participating in the democracy of this country. Number one, I wasn't able to vote. Number two, you can't run for office. You can't serve in a jury. I mean, there's so many things I couldn't do.
Right.
2020 was, of course, a year of sadness with COVID and the crisis that were happening across the nation, with the death and hospitalization with that. But I have also become a voter, someone who has cast his vote for the first time in presidential and local elections. That has, to me, I think it's one of the amazing chapters in my life. I mean, imagine, I grew up in Somalia, of course, at a time when nobody would vote. That wasn't even anywhere near a dream. In Kenya, I've never dreamed of ever participating in the local elections, because I don't even, you have to become a national, and that usually involves a lot more years and other things that you need to do. But participating in this country's, most democratic process, electing your leader, removing your leader, casting your vote, as proud as you can be, has actually, with everything else happening in this country, that has made me feel absolutely proud of being an American.
Right. In your book, Call Me an American, you actually personify a lot of the Somali youth's lives, be they back home or here in North America or in the States. Having that kind of a journey, if you can make a comparison between some of the issues that are going on both ends of the world, which is here in the States is racism, and back home in Somalia, it's tribalism. If you do a comparison of those two challenges, what would you say?
We're talking about racism here. We're not talking about clanism, tribalism in Somalia. That's
right.
First of all, that's a difference. In Somalia, people are actually proud to say that. We have a president elected because of clan.
Right.
In America, we can't have a president elected because of racism. I'm really sorry to say this, but I think in Somalia, we're way behind. We're not even talking about these issues at all in a bad way.
Right.
In America, Black people are speaking up. They're talking about accountability, slavery in this country, racism in the justice system. We're rallying, we're going out on the streets. I have never seen one single rally based on ending clanism and tribalism on 4.5, that system that
right.
they have,
right.
leadership in Somalia.
Right.
So we're not doing well. We Somalis, we're not actually at all even taking responsibility for all the mess that we have made based on clanism. It seems like we're bragging about it. So that's the difference. In America, it's hard to see a white person bragging about it. And if you do, they're mostly caught on camera and they're shamed, and they usually end up going to prison, right. If they go beyond that. So that's one thing. And I feel energized because now I'm not an African American. I wasn't born in this country. I like to be a Somali American.
Right.
But at the same time, I have every right to rally, to speak up for justice, along with African Americans. So this is a road that they have paved, thanks to Martin Luther King Jr. and others who came behind him for building this road. Because there was a time not that long ago that in America, as a Negro, you could not even walk into a certain bar or restaurant because it only said whites only. So
Right.
it wasn't shame at the time, it was normal, but now it's very shameful and people are absolutely disgusted with it. And I think you probably know that in America now, it's okay for a black man to hang out with a white woman. That's not, that's not seen as a bad thing.
It's not a frown upon like it was in the
It's not
60s,
frowned
right?
upon like it was. In
Yeah.
Somalia, we have, we're way behind. We have, there are certain clans or, tribes that holding hands with a woman from the other, it's seen as like, you could get murdered for that. It has actually happened, if you
Happened,
remember,
yeah.
2019, I believe, where someone was burned because he married from the wrong clan. And that was exactly a question that would apply to what we're talking about today. So unfortunately, I don't really think we're well prepared yet. We're not talking.
In conclusion, tribalism is way worse today, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's institutionalized in Somalia. It's practice. It's how you pick your governing bodies. It's really way behind, and I'm interested in knowing how the young generation, would like to combat that and what they could do about that. In your book,
I think it's a responsibility to send a message to the young generation. We're not sending the message.
right?
For example, now there are Somalis who are very famous on social media. They have 200 plus followers. And these are the people who are actually promoting clanism, right? So the young generation are watching that kind of stuff. They're like the syndicated radio hosts. In America, we have conservative radio hosts. I don't know if you've heard of them, Rush Limbaugh,
Right.
Mark Levin. These people are promoting
They
racism.
come across the border through the airwaves. Trust me.
Exactly. So we have we have those kind of version on Somalia actually promoting that it's okay to be from that clan. It's okay to be proud of it. It's okay to steal the land. It's okay to take this and that. So we have that problem.
Right. In your book, Call Me American, you've been sharing your experiences through that. Given the pandemic and what's been going on in 2020 around the world and in the States specifically, how did that affect in sharing your stories?
With the pandemic, it has prevented me from traveling physically, going to places. So that's not happening. So it's all what we are doing right now, virtual. If I connect with a local school or a school somewhere or community somewhere, we have to hang out on virtually like we're doing by Zoom, obviously, and sometimes by Skype. It has definitely affected me like everybody else. I have to basically stay away from the community pretty much.
Would doing it virtually has it afforded you the opportunity to perhaps reach more?
Well, I think yes or no. As you probably know, most of the schools are closed in the state. A lot of them are not even opening up. Most of them love when they have the authors show up and so sign a book for them. On virtual, that's impossible. You can't sign a book. So that is a loss. That's something we're expecting to happen when everybody gets vaccinated. But other than that, yes.
Are you thinking of going from having that book released to doing projects, maybe a movie or documentary? Is there anything you can tell us? How are you going to pivot from this?
Thank you. Very good question. I have signed a documentary contract based on the book. Actually, this was a year ago. And as you probably know, documentaries take a long time, probably 2.5, 3 years.
They do.
So we have finished writing episodes, which is script. And now we're on one of the last 2 steps, which is connect with Hollywood and deal with Netflix. And so once we have a deal with either HBO or Netflix or something else, but the short answer is yes, we actually have a movie, film series based on the book.
Do you plan to release or have other books come out? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Good question. I just finished my next book. It's more of a guidance, uh, to the immigrants plus as well as to the host. It's based on my observation, and there's a lot of update on what happened right after my book was published. Family, friends. Um, that was supposed to be released early this year, but obviously it's not happening now because of COVID. So we pushed it to November this year, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Right.
I have to travel to places for them to take a picture and stuff like that before the book comes out. So I'm hoping that we're all going to be back to normal by, I don't know, summer.
Right. Lastly, you've mentioned how you aspire to be not just an American, or since you couldn't be an African American, to be a Somali American. As you assimilate, for lack of a better word, and have your dreams come through your journeys, do you ever fear drifting away from the Somali part of you? Does at some point, and that comes from someone who's been here as long as you've lived, and I do feel at times that my Somalism is merging into being a Canadian, and in your case, a Somalian. How is that transformation affecting your Somaliness, if you will?
I think we're part of the evolving system, right? You can't be the Somali that you were in 1999, and you cannot be the same Somali that you were in 2008, because I've already transformed
Yeah.
into several ways.
Right.
So I believe that drifting happens in one way or another. Your understanding level increases, your perception of the world, changed in some ways. 6 years I was in the US now, I feel that I'm drifting from who I was as a Somali to a new place, is still Somali, right? So the Somali is like an ocean. You're drifting from here to here. For example, we're thinking creatively. I'm engaging in a conversation with my old childhood friends now. And I realized that because of the thoughts and beliefs and perceptions that we have, that I have personally increased, it's not available to them. For example, I'm gonna say this out loud and you can definitely publish it. Like chatting with my friends on WhatsApp and saying, oh, there's this cute lady, so let's add her on here. So what does that really make me feel? Kind of not really okay, right? So it's like, you're drifting, you're part of this world where you feel like we can't dominate as a male anymore. Let's not do that. Let's not really use this privilege that we've been using for a while.
Chauvinism is done.
It's done. And to my friend, it's like, what are you talking about? We used to do this, right?
Right.
Back then, we had her and her and her, it's like, and now I'm like, well, no, that's not okay anymore. It's like, who am I? Like, I see I've changed as a person. So there's those kind of drifting things. Sometimes it's really good. It's not necessarily bad. I think it helps our community that we change in some ways, because change is necessary to the health and wellness of every community. So that drifting is actually not bad. In terms of like, am I forgetting the language, and am I really dressing kind of funny and completely rejecting, parts of the culture, or doing this and that? Well, first of all, culture is not religion. So you can reject several elements in this culture. If you disagree with it, that's okay. But as a grown-up man who speaks his language and connects with his family all over the world, even a lot of them back in Somalia, I think I'm drifting, but not in a bad way.
Right. No, that's great. Improvement is always welcome, and if you can adapt, you won't be able to survive. Hopefully, through giving back, we can share our experiences with others, and let them know, things can be different if we want them to be different, right? And I wish you a lot of success. I understand your trajectory, and I wish you nothing but the best in your career, and may all your dreams come true, my friend. Thank you very much.
Abdi, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome.
Yeah, thank you.